Welcome to Watching the Horizon. I'm Jake. In previous videos, I've talked about how it would be advantageous for anybody who has the means to leave the big city, at least for the purpose of an SHTF situation. I feel like this is one of those things that's just sort of generally accepted by most preppers, that the city is going to be a fairly dangerous place in the situation where there's no rule of law or there's martial law or just overall systems break down. But I had one subscriber send me a message making an argument that cities would actually be preferable to bug in during an SHTF situation. Now, this person and I obviously have some pretty fundamental differences as far as how we see people in general, and especially how we think people are going to act during a crisis situation. But they did make a couple of good points. And so while this isn't necessarily a full-blown response to that conversation, I do want to talk a little bit more about, is urban survival even possible during or after an SHTF scenario? So what is the problem with urban living during or after an SHTF situation? Now, I could go into all the different reasons. I could talk about how it's going to be difficult to get resources and all this other stuff, and worrying about your neighbors. And really, at the end of the day, you can take all of those problems and you can boil it down to just one problem: population density. Now, there's a lot of people that live in big cities. That's what makes them big. And anybody who's ever seen like a grocery store strike, or has seen that a big storm is coming in and you try to go to Walmart, yeah, the shelves are bare. So in the big cities, you're going to run into a problem of all of your resources are going to be used up really quick. Maybe even before the actual thing, the disaster, the problem even gets there, all your resources are going to get soaked up by the people. Maintaining security is going to be difficult, again, because of population density. With everybody around, it's hard to be safe. It's hard to have privacy. It's hard to make sure that all of your belongings, that all of your resources are, hidden and out of view if you've got a bunch of people running around. Now, it is dependent on what the SHTF situation actually is. But if we have a scenario where there's a breakdown in systems, like a power outage, a sustained power outage, or if you run into something where all of a sudden getting food and resources into the city is going to be a problem, or maybe just something as simple as a garbage man strike, because that's happened. Well, sanitation is going to be probably the number one killer after the initial violence has come through. But staying clean, maintaining good drainage, what to do with human waste. Again, you've got a lot of people in a very small area, and that's a lot of sewage. So disease is going to spread way more quickly in an urban setting than it would, obviously, say, out in the country. You're going to be more prone to attack. People, when they get hungry or their babies start to cry because they're hungry, get desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. So if somebody thinks or believes or heard a rumor that maybe you have resources, you're much more likely to be the subject of attack. Evacuation is also going to be a lot more difficult. Obviously, during any sort of initial event, we've all seen the jammed up streets that again, depending on the scenario, those cars could end up just be living there forever. And so use of roadways out of a city could be more difficult, if not impossible. And even travel within the city itself, because there's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of hungry, starving people, sick, and they're all going to be very opportunistic, I believe. And so if you just want to get across town, it's going to be like running the gauntlet. Again, all of these problems really come down to population density. Now, what if we were to remove population density as a problem from an urban setting? So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. Let's say whatever spark caused the initial event, let's say that is past. The riots have died down. The chaos, has died down. Maybe there was a big die-off of individuals from disease and starvation. Well, what are you left with? Let's just say that the population density that you get out in the rural country is the same population density that you have in an urban setting. Well, now all of a sudden, I think there's some very valid points that it would be advantageous to be in the city. Again, all of this is maintaining the precedence that there's no population density. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the city or whether you're in the country or anywhere, you still need food, water, shelter, sanitation, and security. And you can definitely get those things in a city. And I would even argue that the larger the city, the more advantageous it would be. You've got lots of flat roofs on buildings that would be excellent for water catchment as well as maintaining crops and food production. It's a lot easier to secure a building. You're going to have the advantage of big concrete structures. They're a little bit more bulletproof. They're going to be built and designed to withstand the weather. So you don't actually have to build any shelter or anything like that. That's already done for you. Security is going to be a little bit easier because, again, if you're able to get up into a building, you're going to have a vantage point that you're going to be able to kind of survey the area and, keep a watch out for, any dangers that's coming your way. You'll be able to see them from a further distance. And even if you're not on top of a building, I mean, there's plenty of parks and open space and roadways that you would be able to, have, food production as well as living quarters and that kind of thing. So, again, if you're living in the shell of a city, you're going to have lots of resources available to you. A lot of buildings, a lot of places have solar now, so you will have electricity and you'll have the ability to scavenge like you can't get in a rural setting. You're going to have a lot more amenities available to you that you'll be able to build, a lot more supplies from which to draw from. You're going to have more access to tools, more access to books and resources of that nature as well. And lastly, it's going to be easier to hide. So let's say there is, some sort of, gang, roving gang of people. Well, in an otherwise empty city, it's very difficult to cover a lot of real estate, even by, let's say a large group. Let's say you even have a large group of individuals, say like 100 people, and they are rolling through downtown, whatever city that you're in. 100 people is a lot of people, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to all of the different hiding places that you can find in all of the different, buildings and alleyways and structures and even, substructures of buildings. It'll be a lot easier to see them coming and then hide and secure your position. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think cities are going to become a wasteland. I think there's going to be plenty of people who, either because it's their plan or just through happenstance or even just luck, they're going to stay in the city and they're going to survive and they're going to find a way to survive. And I think that the population density of a city, even after an SHTF scenario, even after the die-off, I think it's going to be too high, personally. I don't know that. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be, but I just can see that that's what's probably going to happen. It just makes sense to me. In fact, I think that after the initial evacuation, people are going to go out into the hills, thinking that that's going to be some sort of, big resource for food, and they're going to realize that it's cold, it's wet, and there's no food there either. I think people are going to come back to the cities. It's just what they know, or they may not even leave in the first place. So now all of a sudden you have that population density problem again. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it was, initially, but I think that because of that, it's still not advantageous to be in a city, or at least to make that the plan. I mean, unless you have, gobs of money laying around that you could afford to build some sort of secret private bunker, indetectable. I think it would be easier to do it in a city, but that's just not realistic, at least for me and for probably 99% of the people out there. Now, I do think that if you are able to leave, do it now. I can at least prepare myself now. Moving out to the country, getting a survival shelter out there, getting, skills in place, learning how to garden, how to do all those things. Those are things I can do right now. Relying on my ability to scavenge parts from leftover buildings, growing a, large rooftop garden, water catchment, probably not something I would be able to go downtown and just start doing today. If you happen to be in the unique situation where your building has a rooftop garden, great. Participate. Learn those skills. But it doesn't make sense to me that that's going to be the plan. I don't believe that people are going to really sort of unite and come together as much as maybe some other individuals think. I feel as though when food gets scarce and babies start to cry because they're hungry, people will do some pretty desperate things. And I just don't want to be there for that. So is urban survival even possible? Yes. I'm going to go with yes. But so is winning the lottery. Winning the lottery is possible. I wouldn't give you quite the same odds, but I don't personally think they're great. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear it. Seriously, if you think urban survival during or after an SHTF situation is totally doable, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments. Seriously, I want to hear your stance. I'd love to hear the argument. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but anyway, appreciate you watching. Be sure to keep your eyes open.